What's up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of my R&B review. Plus, I'll be showing you guys what I've been collecting with my recent collection of CDs and shit like that. Yeah, the album I'm about to review today is Deneice Williams' debut solo album. This is Niecy, released in 1976 on under Columbia. Singles albums known for are I think the main singles were "It's Important to Me," "Free," "Cause You Love Me, Baby," and "That's What Friends Are For." For those of you who don't know who Deneice Williams is, oh, and by the way, Maurice Wright and Charles Stephanie produced this whole album. Just to let y'all know. For those who don't know who Deneice Williams is, she's a singer originally born in Gary, Indiana. Yes, the same place where the Jacksons were from and shit like that. She originally wanted to become a nurse and an anesthetist and shit like that, but then she got into music, and by the early 1970s, she became a backup vocalist working with Stevie Wonder for his band Wonder Love. And she had put her vocals on like the Talking Book album, Fulfilling His First Finale, and Songs in the Key of Life, as well as guesting on the Stevie Wonder Presents Rita album and Perfect Angel. Both albums I need to get in my collection. I used to have Perfect Angel. But excuse me, I'm sorry. But I gave that away, thinking I would actually see the album in stores again. But it's a very rare album where I'm at. Yeah. Oh shit. Oh, I'm sorry about that. But yeah. So then, she left work. She left working with Stevie Wonder in '75, and she signed with Columbia Records and Columbia Productions. She worked closely with Charles Stephanie and Maurice White, and then this is how the album came about. Alright, very dope album cover. Like, you see her wearing like this black and yellow dress, but then she's camouflaged and shit like that. I thought that was very dope the way it came out. Yeah. I would play this album, but I've noticed that the album is kind of skipping a little bit, but it is what it is. I still got the album, but alright, so nothing really to it, just the songs right here. And of course, you know, Deneice Williams right there. Oh, this is something that I have not really seen. Yeah, this is basically like a biography of Deneice Williams and shit like that. I did never notice that. Cause I think I've had this album for about two years now, so yeah. Okay, so this is like a relatively short album. It only has about 7 songs, and I'm definitely gonna talk about all the songs and shit like that because when I first heard this album, I definitely thought it was good, but I didn't really think it was like great. But then over the year, I re-listened to this album, and I definitely have to like give out a good opinion on this and shit. Yeah, let me get started with the first song. First song is called "It's Important to Me." Very dope song. Love, nice way to start off the song and shit. Start the album and shit. Yeah, definitely has that traditional Earth, Wind, and Fire groove with it, and she definitely does this thing on the song singing wise. Track number 2, "That's What Friends Are For." Self-explanatory. It's talking about, you know, the importance of friends and stuff like that. Very cool song, kind of like a feel good. It's pretty much like a feel good song, comforting song in a way. Love this song. Track number 3, "Slip Away." This song right here definitely has that traditional Earth, Wind, and Fire groove yet again. Nice little party track, very dope track and shit. Then we get to "Cause You Love Me, Baby." Um, this song to me was like one of the few songs where it definitely complements her vocal ability and things of that nature. Very nice song. Love the heavenly vibe she gave to that song. And then we get to "Free," which is my favorite song off this album. This is maybe like the song I first heard from her and shit. Just the way she brings in singing a cappella. Well, not technically a cappella, but that slow build up, with the harp kinda, and then it just drops that bass and that beat and shit like that. Like you guys have heard, everybody has heard that song. And I got to be free, da 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 da, free. Like that's like one of the most feel good songs like of that decade and shit like that. Very dope. A lot of people have sampled that track from Mike Geronimo to KD. So yeah, "Free," track number 5, my favorite song off this album. Then we get to "Watching Over," which was that song was pretty okay and shit like that. Not really one of my faves. And the last song, "If You Don't Believe," again, it was a pretty alright song. Like the longest song off the album and shit. That definitely has like some of her gospel tones towards it. And that's all the songs of this album. Yeah, I know it's like a little short review, but I'm just so glad I reviewed this album and I got this album because this is definitely continuing with the Earth, Wind, Fire train we're going through. This is actually a very dope album. I'm not gonna front. Like I said before, like it's not like it has some of it like it doesn't have some like their best work, but at the same time, Deneice Williams, she definitely elevates everything on this album and shit like that. Not that saying that Maurice and Charles did a shitty job producing this album. Far from saying that. What else about this album? Definitely has that mid-70s vibe towards the like Deneice Williams. Deneice Williams definitely had. If you guys like Minnie Riperton, you'll most definitely like Deneice Williams, especially if you like that Perfect Angel album. You'll most definitely love this album and shit like that. This album was actually released in 2012 with some bonus tracks, so if you can find it, you must have in your collection. This is Deneice Williams. This is Niecy, 1976. And I'm about to talk about the CDs I got in my collection. Yeah, I got some really good ones this day. So let's start it off. First album I got is an album that I've recently done a review on. It's Big Daddy Kane's Daddy's Home, released in 1994 on RCA Records. Big Daddy Kane, you guys should know who he is. I reviewed everything from Long Live the King up to Looks Like a Job for. This album was known for songs like "In the PJs," "Show and Prove." Me and Steven definitely did, aka Mobility 1, aka we did a review on this album. When I first heard this album, I really did love it, this album and shit like that. But then over the years, I still do like the album, but I just kind of got a little. It had like a lot of like misplaced punchlines and shit, but it's still a dope album. Nothing taken away from that shit. This album is actually out of print, so if you can find this album, must have in your collection. Big Daddy Kane, Daddy's Home. There we have Sade with Stronger Than Pride, released in 1988 on Epic Records. You guys should know who Sade is. I've already reviewed her first 2 albums, Diamond Life and Promise. This is a third studio album. Singles album is known for Love Is Stronger Than Pride, Paradise, Nothing Can Come Between Us, Turn My Back on You and Haunt Me. Very dope album and shit. This album is not as like melodic and somber as Diamond Life and Promise respectively, but it definitely has like that groove. It has like more of a groove and more dominant use of like the bass and shit like that on this album. Very dope album. Yeah, it's a feel good album. Sade, Stronger Than Pride, 1988. Expect a review on this around December. Then we have Ultramagnetic MCs with their third studio album, The Four Horsemen, released in 1993 on Wild Pitch Records. Yes, Ultramagnetic MCs consist of members Kool Keith, Said G, TL Love, and Mo Love. This came out 1 year after the infamous Funk Your Head Up album, where they signed to Mercury, and that album did not do too well. I'm definitely gonna do a review on that album because Mercury kind of wanted them to do like a more commercial sound, so they went behind Ultramagnetic MC's back, hired some producers to remix certain tracks on the album and shit. Ultramagnetic left, and so they signed with Wild Pitch Records and stuff like that. And although Wild Pitch had its issues as well, they always let the artist have creative control. And also around that time, they hooked up with this cat named Godfather Don. And Godfather Don, definitely a dope, underrated rapper and producer, introduced them to like a more darker, jazzier sound. And the result was this album. Singles album is known for, came out with a couple singles. Raise It Up, Two Brothers with Checks. I believe Checking My Style was a single. Give me a second. Yeah, Two Brothers with Checks and Raise It Up. Those are like the main singles, basically. This is a very dope album. This is probably like one of my most listened to, probably my most listened to album from them, and shit like that. And my personal favorite. This album is just so dark, so grimy. They definitely did their thing with this album. And one thing I've noticed about this album was that they were throwing like a lot of baseball references with this album and shit like that. Most prominently evident on the song Saga of Dandy, The Devil and Day. Classic song where it's talking about like the creation of the Negro League and shit like that. So expect a review on this album, Ultramagnetic MC's The Four Horsemen. I believe they re-released this album back in 2008 on undergroundhiphop.com. So if you can find this album, must have in your collection. Then we have U-God with his debut album, Golden Arms Redemption, released in 1999 on Priority, Wu Records under Priority. Yes, this album, you guys know who U-God is. He's part of the Wu-Tang Clan. Yeah, he's finally put out his debut solo album. Singles album is known for are That's Gangsta and Bizarre. Yeah. I'm going to do a review on this in about 2 weeks, so stay tuned on my verdict on this album. Golden Arms Redemption, U-God. This album is actually out of print. Then we have an album I've been meaning to get in my collection for years. Finally got this album, and it's Organized Confusion's debut solo, self-titled Organized Confusion, released in 1991 on Hollywood Basic. Yes, Organized Confusion, Principal, Pharaoh Monch. Yeah, singles album is known for are, excuse me, Who Stole My Last Piece of Chicken, Fudge Pudge, Rough Side of Town, and Walking Through the Sun. Yeah, this album right here was very dope, very ahead of its time. You know, it's crazy because, like, they really did not really get that much push back in that time. Like, they got noticed, but they were just so abstract short from everybody else that they kind of got pushed to the side by, like, a lot of people and shit, you know what I'm saying? And so, like, all the albums are out of print, so if you can find this album, must have in your collection. Like, although Stress the Extinction Agenda is my favorite, this album right here is so dark. Like, just like the vocabulary they're using at the time was so amazing and shit. And it's kind of crazy too because back in the day when I used to when I got into Organized Confusion, this used to be like the most expensive album in their discography. Now, wait, scratch that. The Equinox used to be the most expensive album in their discography. Now it's this album and shit. Like I said before, all the albums are out of print, so if you can find this album, you must have it in your collection. Organized Confusion, subtitle 1991. H2O. Then we got the Boogie Down Productions 4 studio album Entertainment, released in 1990 on Jive Records. Yeah, you guys should know I talked about, well, briefly touched upon their Verse 2 albums, and I talked about KRS-One's Return to the Boom Bap. Yeah. Singles albums known for are single. Love's Gonna Get Ya, and You Know the Rules. This album right here was a very, very dope album. It's a classic album by many people. One of the greatest conscious hip hop albums ever. Like, just KRS-One, Deneice, Miss Melody, Kenny Parker. Like, they all just did their thing and shit like that. You know what I'm saying? Definitely was talking about a lot of topical issues that was really taboo in hip hop at the time and shit, like homelessness, and when he talking about house nigga mentality, about they're talking about beef. We're not talking about like lyrical beef, we're talking about how beef would poison your system and shit. Like, very dope album. Love this album. It's kind of crazy because this album, a lot of people did not like this album at that time and shit like that, because they started to call KRS-One a bit too preachy with this. I thought it was a dope album. I'm gonna definitely talk about that when I review this album. And if I'm not mistaken, this album actually got 5 mics on the source, if I'm not mistaken. So that should tell you something. Edutainment, Boogie Down Productions, 1990. Must have your collection. If you can find it, pick it up. Then we got Brand Nubian and God We Trust, released in 1993 on Elektra Records. Brand Nubian, you guys, in case you don't know, they're Grand Puba, Sadat X, Lord Jamar, and DJ Alamo. Their first album, One for All, was released in 1990. I'm so sorry, I'm so tired, y'all. Released in 1990, was a classic album. Classic album by many people. I'm definitely gonna do a review on that album one day. But that album was a double-edged sword, because a lot of people were kind of considering Grand Puba to be like the breakout MC, because you guys should know that he was already in the hip hop group way before Brand Nubian, called the Masters of Ceremony, so he got a lot of clout behind his name. And what had happened was, he left the group after like internal tension within the group, and he left in around 91, 92. Then he dropped the Real to Real album, which was an album that was very dope, classic album. I don't care what no one says. And then Brand Nubian, and DJ Alamo left to work with Brand Puba as well. So they replaced that DJ Alamo with DJ Sincere, and Sadat and Jamar soldiered on, and they did this album, In God We Trust. Very dope album. Love this album. In my opinion, this might be very controversial, but this is my favorite album from Brand Nubian. I feel like this album definitely defined their sound, in my opinion, because it was like more militant, more darker. And I've always said like Brand Nubian was kind of like the synthesis between the traditional, like the conscious hip hop crowd, and like the hardcore gangster crowd and shit like that. But I'm gonna talk more about that when I start reviewing their albums. Singles albums known for are Punks Jump Up to Get a Beat Down, which, if I'm not mistaken, that was not on the what's that? What's that shit? The Men's Society soundtrack. Allah You Akbar and Love Me or Leave Me Alone. Definitely both Sadat and Jamar did their thing. I feel like this is Sadat X's best single album with Brand Nubian. Yeah, man. Definitely a classic album, my menu. Must have in your collection. I believe this album is actually out of print. If you can find it, must cop, must cop. Then we got, ooh, that's some good ones we have to talk about. Master P's, I believe his fifth or fourth studio album. Ice Cream Man released his fifth studio album. Ice Cream Man released in 1996. Under No Limit, Under Priority. Singles I was known for are Mr. Ice Cream Man, Bout It Part 2, and No More Tears. Very, very dope album. In my opinion, this is his best studio album to date. A lot of people say Ghetto D, which Ghetto D I do like, but I like that old masterpiece that like my favorite years from Nolan maybe have to be 94 up to 2000. And this is one of the main reasons why those years are my favorite and shit, because this was a transitional year for Master P himself, because, you know, the early No Limits records and shit like that, when he dropped, you know, Mama's Bad Boy and shit like that, had more of like a West Coast influence sound, so he went back to his roots in New Orleans and dropped this album and shit. So, yeah, man, very dope album, like How G's Vibe, Break 'Em Off, Something with UGK, About It Part 2 with Mia X, like, this album is very dope and shit. I love this album. I done a review on this album years ago, but I might actually do a re-review, because I think that one I did a review back, I think I did it back in 2014. I remember because it was the day before I went to Central and shit like that, before I went to college and shit, so damn, it was that long. Wow, shit. Anyway, yeah. Master P, Mr. Ice Cream Man, they re-released this album, I believe in 2005, so if you can find it, must have in your collection. Then we have Prince Paul's solo debut album, his second studio album, A Prince Among Thieves, released in 1999 on Tommy Boy Records. Ironically, it was released on Tommy Boy for a while, okay. Prince Paul, you guys should know who he is. One of the most influential producers in hip hop history. This cat, you know, he was working with Stetsasonic. Then he went to work with De La Soul. Then he went to work with the Gravediggers shit. And then so he came out with this album in he came out with the What It Is album, the Psychoanalysis album. And that album was a very trippy album and shit like that. I need to get my hands on that album. And 3 years later, he came out with this album, which was somewhat of a concept album. This tells the story about this young guy trying to be an MC, but he get caught up in the drug game and shit like that. A lot of rappers, you know, participated on this album. Like, you had cats like Kane, Biz Markie, of course, De La Soul, Kool Keith. Like, a lot of cats contributed to this album and shit. Chris Rock, Buckshot. So yeah, very dope album. Like, I don't hear a lot of people talk about the importance of Prince Paul's Prince Among Thieves. My homeboy Martin hooked me up with this album, the Brand Nubian Edutainment and the Organized Confusion joint. So shout out to you, my dude. Yeah, he be having that shit on lock. So yeah, very dope album. Expect a review on this one day. This album is actually out of print, so yeah. And then we got my boy David Bowie with Low, released in 1977 on RCA. I reviewed Hunky Dory, Station to Station, Ziggy Stardust, and Aladdin Sane. Yeah, so this album was the beginning of his Berlin trilogy. Very, very good album, very dope album. Singles albums known for are Sound and Vision, Be My Wife, and Breaking Glass. Like, he relocated to Berlin, and he started working with like Brian Eno and Tony Visconti and shit like that. And you know, he started like experimenting more with like avant-garde electronic music and shit. So Very dope album. Definitely has that, very ahead of its time too and shit. Cause he always did well when he was working with electronic music and shit like that. And it was so original at its time because it did not feel like it was released in 1977. And the crazy thing I like about this album was the last couple of tracks, like the last 4 tracks, are just like smooth instrumentals and shit. So yeah, dope, very dope album. Low, must have in your collection. Then we get to Heroes, released the same year. Singles albums known for are Heroes and Beauty and the Beast, V2 Schneider and Sense of Doubt. A lot of people kind of say this is the best in the Villain trilogy. I'm gonna say my thoughts on that when the time is right. But like, yeah, very dope album and shit like that. Um, Definitely picked up where Low left off, but the albums are a lot more darker and atmospheric and shit like that. And yeah, and he put his heart and his whole soul on his album. Like, expect a review on Heroes, all like the David Bowie album I've been getting recently. So, Heroes, 1977. The last album I am about to show you guys is out of print, and you guys might be surprised that it's out of print because with the fan base this artist has and shit, you would think that her album would be re-released, but it's this one. Aaliyah's One in a Million, released in 1986 on Black Ground Under Atlantic. Yeah, it's a second studio album. Singles albums known for are If Your Girl Only Knew, One in a Million, Got to Give It Up, the cover of the Marvin Gaye song, 4-Page Letter, Hot Like Fire, and the One I Gave My Heart To. Yeah, this was the beginning of when she worked with like Timbaland and Missy Elliott. Very dope album. In my opinion, this is her best album in my opinion. She definitely did a thing with this album. She definitely felt like herself with this album because Age Ain't Nothing But a Number, while that was a classic album too, it felt more like the female counterpart of 12 Play, That's not denying R. Kelly's talent and shit. But it's kind of crazy how this album and the third album, Aaliyah's out of print, but the first one is still in print, but people talk shit about R. Kelly though, but it is what it is. Yeah, some of Timbaland's best beats on this album. Yeah, they all did their thing on this. So Aaliyah, One in a Million, 1996. That's all the time I have. Stay tuned for more. And stay tuned for my Q&A the week of the 15th and shit like that. I don't know what day, so stay tuned. Peace.